Hi, welcome to Kettle's Yard. I'm Amy Tobin, I'm a curator here at Kettle's Yard, and I'm going to give you a guided tour of Linderism while we're closed. Linderism takes up the two galleries at Kettle's Yard and extends all across the rest of the site. This is the first part of the first gallery, and it's called The Underground. For this section of the exhibition, we wanted to gather together all the photomontages, the works that Linder is most well known for, that she made between 1976 and 1977. So the key idea of this gallery is to show the different influences of this early photomontage practice. And these are kind of wide-ranging, but the three most important ones to me are feminism, which Linder encountered through the pages of the magazine Spare Rib that she managed to get hold of in Manchester in the 70s, as well as Dada, which Linder read about in Dawn Ades's famous book Photomontage. And I think Dada is an important context for these works because the Dada artists of the Weimar Republic were really some of the first to make an avowedly political art that engaged with print culture, popular culture, in a concerted way. And Linder was really capitalised by their example and sought to do a similar thing. One of the most significant influences on Linder's practice is punk. It's one of the things she's most kind of well known for, and that's definitely represented in these photomontages too. You'll see here images that imagine punk style, and also ones that kind of have the spirit of punk, in that they juxtapose maybe banal seeming images or kind of images of bourgeois sophistication with sex and politics. This series of works, titled The Light with Nothing to Rest Upon, dates from 1976-77. These are photographs that Linder took in the nightclub Dickens in Manchester during a drag competition that was held there annually. Although these works are unusual in relation to the works that Linder is more well known for, they're important because they show people performing identity and different kinds of style. You'll see that some of the figures in this series perform characters and celebrities, and that's sort of what Linder's interested in too, how different kind of identity forms might be picked up and put down again. And so just like the photomontages, there's a kind of exchange of signs, of meanings that take place in this work. But also what's important is she's documenting this small underground scene where people were creating a world for themselves. And as much as with the early photomontages that you see before you see these works, intervene in the world, they're kind of angry and political in some ways. These images show a different side to an underground or political culture, in that that's also about creating something else alongside being critical. In that way, they're really pivotal works to the exhibition because they take us from this moment of anger and intervention and into a much more joyous set of practices. This is the second part of Gallery 1, Helen and the Heroines, and in this section we're showing a series of photographs, drawings and archive material, as well as these lingerie masks behind me that Linder made during the 1970s and 1980s. These works are really diverse, and that's kind of the point, is to show all of the different things that she was making and creating over this period that go beyond what we traditionally think of as art. One of the most important things that Linder did during the 1980s was form the band Reboots. They wrote and released a number of records, but they were also well known for their performances. Perhaps the most famous Reboots performance took place at the Hacienda nightclub in Manchester in 1982. And it's gone down in history really because of Linder's costume, which comprised a meat dress, tulle skirt, rubber gloves and a black dildo. She revealed the dildo midway through the performance, ripping off the tulle skirt in the style of Bucks Fizz, who just won the Eurovision Song Contest. The meat dress was a comment on the macho meat-eating culture at the Hacienda, which also played pornography on quiet nights. And so Linder's sort of sexy and erotic performance in a meat dress was trying to point out the problems of this culture and how it excluded or objectified some more than others. This is Gallery 2 of Linderism. It's called Paradise Experiments and includes works made after 2006 when Linder restarted making photomontage after a 20-year break. One of the important things to note about Linder's photomontages after 2006 is that she begins using a wider variety of source material, no longer taking things from the magazines and papers that she could access at her local newsagent, but now using a variety of books, magazines, negatives, things that she's found, sourced, and been gifted. Whereas in the earlier works, most of the photomontages are made up of publications that Linder says were made for men, pornographic publications, and publications that were made for women, so publications about the home, or the family, or fashion. These publications are much more varied in their audience, and they range from pornography still, but also health magazines. There's celebrity portraits here, images from ballet journals, rose albums, cookery books. It's really, really varied. And the juxtapositions that you get are also quite varied. So you'll see figures merging with furniture, but also with food, with flowers. And these different combinations speak to different ideas, but one way to think about them is about the affects that they create. So when you see a rose or a flower, you might think about scent as much as you think about looking at something. Or if you see a piece of furniture, you might think about how it feels to interact with it, to sit on it, to put something on top of it, to touch it. And so these works are often recreations of human figures or recreations of particular moments of encounter that allow us to imagine something different than what the image, the original image, the image from the source material might suggest. In this gallery as well, we also have some non-photomontage works called mantic stain works, such as this one here. And these works are not combinations of print material, but instead they see Linder use enamel and let the enamel flow through the page to create this patterning. And this is an important part of her more recent practice, which she's taken or borrowed from the British surrealist artist Ethel Colquhoun. And the kind of chance element of these works is what Linder's interested in here, in the same way that in a photomontage, the chance combination of two things might be transformative, so too here, the kind of collision of inks, and the collision of inks on a page is transformative. In this gallery, we've tried to show Linder's works in different ways. So sometimes we show multiple series together in a cluster hang, which is the section that you've just seen me speak about. But in this section, we've shown them together in a grid because these works all come from the same original book, the same source material, which is a book by the photographer House of Helen. Now, Linder often uses a single book to make a series like this because she's interested in the way that different images come together in a single publication. She'll often use the same kind of motifs to transform that publication as well. So here you can see it's primarily flowers and floral elements, but there's also shells and ladybirds. And these things are really not about kind of rescuing women in the photographs, although there's a kind of sense that maybe that might happen too, but really to investigate the images themselves. So she's interested in the peculiarities of images like this. Like, for instance, why are they in a mock Tudor house to shoot this book? Or how is this, lawn so trimmed? Or why these kind of different themes or backgrounds explored in the works? Linder's work extends out of the galleries at Kettle's Yard and encompasses the whole building. The first route that you might take through the building is to go up our stairs and to our first floor and into the research space. And on this level, you'll already notice that we've covered the walls with a mural that Linder made. And this was part of a commission she had while she was artist in residence for Art on the Underground. She made this large mural for Southwark Tube Station, where it was horizontal across the outside of the station. And here, we've cut it and re-edited it so that you go up, you travel up with this mural on a vertical plane. And that's because Linder's really been interested in the past few years in the idea of ascension, and that's also the reason behind Gallery 2 being called the Paradise Experiments. It's the idea that we might be lifted into a different consciousness. Also in this space, you would be able to see Linder's source books. These are the books she uses to make the photomontages after 2006. And they're laid out here. Some of the titles include Woman's Weekly Cookbook, Miniature Roses, Baron at the Ballet, and the Encyclopedia of Animals. And the idea here is to think about both the accidental or the chance element of Linder's work, but also the way she is herself a sort of archaeologist of print culture and searches out images to use. Also on this floor, in our research space, you can watch documentation of performances that Linder's made over the past few decades. These include the ballets The Ultimate Form and Children of the Mantic Stain, as well as the important performances Your Actions Are My Dreams, The Working Class Go to Paradise, and on the second floor, The Vow of Bliss. These performances are like expanded collages for Linder, where she brings together many different references to make a new body, a new piece of work, often working with different choreographers, with costume designers, with composers and musicians, to make an enormous and kind of total environment in her work. Welcome to Helen Ede's bedroom in the Kettle's Yard house. When we were working with Linder for the exhibition, doing research on the house and on Jim and Helen Ede was a really important part of her getting used to the space, and we commissioned her to make some new works for the house and for other parts of the site. She was particularly struck by the story of Helen Ede and by this space in particular, which was the only part of the house that wasn't preserved when Jim Ede left it to the University of Cambridge. The thing that really struck Linder was how little we knew about Helen, and that's also something that's really important to us here at Kettle's Yard as well. We're always trying to find out more about her and her role in making and creating Kettle's Yard. She was definitely a significant figure here, as shown in many of the letters and archive accounts that we have, but there's little material trace in the house itself. So Linder made this space into a kind of tribute to Helen and to other female figures lost from history. So in this space you'll see a number of works, not just new commissions. We have a series of photomontages from 2015 that are inspired by Barbara Hepworth. All of these figures in this room have pierced forms, so they're all models from Vogue pattern books from the 1970s, the last few years of Barbara Hepworth's life, and they all have homely accoutrements over their bodies, thinking about the sculptural forms that Barbara Hepworth made in the mid-20th century. Other works include two sculptural pieces from a series called The Lives of Women Dreaming from 2004. These are behind me in the display case. They're called Saint Uncumber and Saint Liberada. And these are actually both, or two names for one saint, and this is the saint of thwarted marriages. So this is somebody who helps you get through a difficult relationship. We also have in the display case a work from our reserve collection by Noam Garbo, which was made for his daughter Nina. It's made in 1962, and Linder thought this was important to include because it's a sort of work made in tribute of a woman who's kind of supported Garbo's career and estate. And she's also really interested in it because it's got this tantalising red spot in the centre of the piece. And that spoke to a project that she did in the 2000s where she designed a prototype lipstick, which you also see in the display case, and that's called Maiden Voyage. And that's important because Linder's interested in glamour and representing femininity in all its different forms. So a nice reference to her performance of her own identity too. Another commission that Linder has brought to Kettle's Yard are sound works made in collaboration with her son, the composer Maxwell Sterling. One of the works is installed here in Helen's bedroom, or I should say it's between Helen's bedroom and Jim's bedroom, placed in a hatch that connects the two spaces, and which we think was used for Jim and Helen to communicate to one another. This sound work comprises a sort of new version of the song Vagina Gratitude that Linder made in 1981 with Ludus, but this time it's been revoiced by a number of younger women who are speaking the synonyms for the vagina in lots of different languages. Alongside that is also beautiful sound work that just really is about gesturing to the interconnectedness of these spaces and talking about the fabric of the house, but also gesturing to the relationship between Jim and Helen. And I think Linda's just as interested in Jim as a character and as a person as she is in Helen. And that's really represented in a photomontage that she's made especially for us, using the poster for the film adaptation by Ken Russell of Jim Ede's biography of Henri Gaudier-Brechka called Savage Messiah. The film is a really fantastic romp through Henri Gaudier-Brechka's life and presents to the audience this kind of wild figure of the artist that Jim Ede wrote about in his biography. And we bring that into the space of Kettle's yard, so it's displayed downstairs in our extension opposite Henri Gaudier-Brechka's The Wrestlers. Throughout the house, there are a number of house guests that Linder has also invited in. These include glassworks made in collaboration with the glassmaker Jochen Holtz. These works are vessels, really, for holding and capturing scent. And Linder is really keen to enliven the sense of the house that would have been here, would have changed the space, would have transformed it when Jim and Helen lived here. Linder has also made new scents for the house, and this is going back to some of the archival research that we did, that we found out that actually the house would have been full of aromas when Jim and Helen lived here, and Jim used to make his own potpourri, and we've revived that recipe currently. And although you can't smell it, sadly, I can tell you that it's very potent and really infuses the house. In addition to making interventions in the house, Linder's also installed a work called the Salt Shrine in St. Peter's Church, which is where Jim Ede used to ring the Angelus. The Salt Shrine was originally made in 1997 at the behest of the curator Michael Stanley. The Salt Shrine is a kind of miraculous happening. It seems to appear overnight in these little used or perhaps little known spaces and kind of focuses our attention on that space, infuses them with a kind of spirituality. And in the Christian context of St. Peter's, there's lots of invocations to be made there. You can also access Linderism beyond the physical space. For the duration of the exhibition, we've intervened in the website, exchanging all references to Jim Ede to Helen to change the narrative of Kettle's Yard. And there are a number of products available in a range that Linder has created called House of Helen, which you can get on our website. If you'd like to find out more about the exhibition, you can visit our website for more information, or you can order the catalogue on our online shop. Thank you very much for coming on this guided tour of Linderism with me.